Oh, hi there! My name is Nikita and I'm one of 2 guides in the Moscow tour guides. Our company was rated the best in Moscow last year and probably will be this year as well because nothing has changed since the borders are closed. And you know, tourists are always coming to Moscow and they know that they want to see Red Square and Kremlin. But I think there is much more to it than that. So now, as one of the best rated tour guides of Moscow, I will show you some of my favorite unusual places in the city center. Let's go. And it's already almost winter in Moscow, so it becomes dark very soon. We have like 3 hours to shoot the whole video, so hurry up, let's go. Now we are on a super busy TRINITY street, and here will be the first site. You may ask, like, where? You just have to go in. So this whole place was organized by the merchant called ELISEEV. The guy wanted to have 3 shops, one in Kiev, one in St. Petersburg and one in Moscow. All of them were supposed to have extremely friendly and knowledgeable staff who knew every client by name and surname. Since the opening of the shop in 1903 till the Communist Revolution, it was the most luxurious private shop in the city center. But during Soviet time everything has changed. And in Soviet times people were coming here to get a little bit of butter, a little bit of a Holland cheese, as they called it, and tiny pieces of sausages. Eventually, during Soviet times, this place was transformed into more like an elite shop only for the people working for the Soviet government. Also, there were lots of bribery here, so in 1983, the director of the shop was shot. Kinda a usual practice in the Soviet Union, but let's go to the next place called SAVVINSKOE PODVORIE. Hidden, because that's a video about the hidden places of Moscow. We're again on Tversky Street. It's very busy and it's kind of beautiful, but you have to find a house in which was living this guy. That one, Kornei Chukovsky, my favorite fairy tale stories writer. And then you have to find one arch and go inside. Look, Kate, what I have found. These tiny placards. They're put on lots of houses in Moscow, and they're signifying people who were living in those houses but who were shot or sent to gulags during Stalin's period. It's a pretty cool memorial, don't you think so? So this one is called SAVVINSKOE PODVORIE. It was like a prophet house of the Savo-Strozhevsky monastery, which you maybe have seen in our video about Zvenigorod. Remember? We were inside of a monastery. They bought a house in the middle of Moscow and they were renting apartments there. There's also one incredible thing about the architect. His name is Ivan Kuznetsov, and if you have seen our video about Sochi abandoned sanatorium of Joseph Stalin, you remember it, right? The same guy. He made this prophet house for the monastery, and later in the Soviet period he was making sanatoriums for Stalin. What a career, what a life. One of the people who were renting apartments from the monastery here was Alexander Hanchenkov. He was like a pioneer of the Russian cinema, a person who made one of the first documentaries on the earthquake in Sicily in 1908, but also the first ever in the world cartoon with dolls. But they were actually not dolls, they were little bugs made out of clay. And his cartoon was actually that good and no one ever saw anything like that before. London newspapers were writing about how Russians were able to train bugs to star in a cartoon. But no. They were just little clay sculptures of bugs. Awesome, right? And he was living here. Probably the most incredible thing here is that the building was moved. And, I mean, it was lifted, put on rails, and moved. From Tversky Street over there to right here. And now let's go to the next spot. Probably the least beautiful, but maybe one of the most important. This is Lovetsky stone. This one is called Lovetsky stone. It was brought from the Slovetsky monastery and later Slovetsky labor camp. not that far from Arkhangelsk in the White Sea. Lovetsky labor camp was one of the harshest on the whole territory of USSR and became like a symbol of the whole Gulag system of the Soviet Union. This kind of stones they have not only in Moscow but in other Russian cities as well, in St. Petersburg, Novosibirsk for example, but even in the Museum of the Monastery of the Holy Trinity in USA. And will look not really impressive, but it's quite important for history, especially on one day when we are kind of celebrating the day of the victims of the political repressions. On this day, and actually throughout the year, people are bringing flowers and flags sometimes, or candles here, to commemorate their relatives or friends, or relatives and friends of their family who died because of the repressions. Nearby these stones I have explanations about what happened in Russian and in English, but if you want to learn more, you can also go to the Museum of Gulag, which is pretty large and pretty interesting place to visit in Moscow. And now let's go see a couple of monasteries hidden on the little streets of the Kitai-Gorod district. I hope you have seen my video about Nikolskoye Street. If not, go see it. If yes, you probably remember that we haven't told you anything about ZAIKONOSPASSKY monastery, because it's a hidden gem. Hidden right there. Sometimes the doors are closed as well, so you have to open them, but you can go in. ZAIKONOSPASSKY means behind the icons of Christ the Savior. People back in the days were selling here icons on the street, and particularly this place, lots of icons of Christ the Savior. So let's go behind them and see what's inside. That is the main building of it, and what's unique about it is it's still operating. Real monks are living there. You can go in, but you cannot film inside, so we won't be bothering them. But also they have here in the yard the oldest university of Russia called Славяно-Греко-Латинская Академия. Also closed now for everyone because they have now a real operating university inside. Now let's go see the other monastery which everyone misses all the time, called Bogayavlensky. In Russian we call it Bogayavlensky Monastery, but in English they usually call it the Epiphany Monastery. The most interesting story about it is that during World War II there was a German bomb plane which was shot down and was falling here, so it cut the upper part of the monastery and had fallen right there. So the upper part of it was completely cut down and rebuilt a little bit later. And it's also kind of beautiful with lots of details, so why not to turn off the main Nikolskoye Street and see it for a couple of minutes? Now let's go see a couple of hidden places in Zarядye Park. So the first place I want to show you in Zarядye is called the Old English Court, because it's old. It's actually so old, it's the oldest civil building outside of Kremlin in Moscow. It was acting like a place for the English ambassadors living in Moscow. The thing was that there was a big trade going on between Moscow and England. Especially the big trade was happening during the time of Ivan the Terrible. Ivan the Terrible also had plans to run to England through Arkhangelsk in case of the uprising in the country. Relationships between Russians and English guys changed only during the period of Alexei Mikhailovich Romanov, one of the first Romanovs. And that's because Charles I, one of the kings of England, was beheaded by the decision of the parliament, so Russians stopped trusting English people at all. They were expelled out of the country, and this place stopped being English embassy. Now it's a museum, so you can see how people were living back in the days in Moscow. But let's stop talking about the Old English Court and see one of my favorite viewpoints. So this is the most central and popular among locals viewpoint in the city center, but lots of foreigners don't know about it. Kinda low, but because it's over the river, you can see from here lots of interesting things, like the Kremlin, the Moscow city, a couple of stunning skyscrapers. Also here, that's my favorite. Look at it. Whoa! Yeah, it's the oldest still operating power plant in the Moscow city center. It is supplying with electricity Kremlin, Duma, which is our parliament, and a couple of other administration buildings in the city center. And one of the most recognizable symbols of Moscow is the high-rise on the Kotelnicheskaya embankment. Of course you heard about it. It's one of the Seven Sisters, famous Stalin skyscrapers in the Moscow city center. And now we're going to this completely strange place, not even locals know about it, because over there they have administration of the president behind a fence. And what no one knows is that actually anyone can go inside on the territory of it. And there we have one of the most unique churches of the whole Moscow. So the church is dedicated to the Holy Trinity, but it has actually like two churches inside. The upper one is to Holy Trinity, and the lower one is to Saint Nikita. Kinda the same name as me, but I'm not him. And it's made on the place of the more ancient church of the Saint Nikita, but was rebuilt because it burned down by Grigory Nikitin. So lots of Nikitins and Nikitas here, right? And so interesting because this place is hidden and it's behind a fence, but it's actually one of the most important churches of the 17th century of Moscow and maybe of the whole Russia. The same people who were making the Terem Palace in the Kremlin where Stalin later lived, they were also making this church for the private order of Grigory Nikitin. Almost all of the Russian church architecture of the 17th century is inspired by this particular church. Such details as kokoshniki, girki and shrinki were taken from here and then used in the other buildings in the city. So you can call it like a very Russian style here. And now let's go see another viewpoint in the city center. It's already evening, so the view will be completely different. So we have already been here today, remember Lovetsky stone, but we are back to go inside of the central children's shop because on the very top, no one knows it, but it's true, there is a wonderful viewpoint. Let's go see it. So what's cool about it is that it's right in the city center. All you have to do is go inside of the central children's store, which is a giant store just for children, and you go upstairs, and on the floor above the 6th one, which is not the 7th but like 6.5, you get that. One of the most awesome views in the city center. And after this long day, it's already dark. What can be better than finding a good place to eat? So we are showing you the central market. So that's it, the final spot, the central market. It's right in the city center, but foreigners usually miss it because you have to walk a little bit out of the Red Square area. It's on a very cool place called the Boulevard Ring, and it's on one of those boulevards making a ring. Inside you can find the food from all over the world. If you want our recommendations on the Russian food, try shi, borscht, blini, khinkali, pelmeni, kulebaka, and drink a little bit of kvass. And if you have enjoyed this little tour of ours on the top 10 unusual places of Moscow, subscribe to our channel to see more, because we are promising to upload every Saturday. And yeah, see you!